Happy Thursday, everyone. Hope you missed me yesterday. I was swamped with clients, but as promised on Tuesday, I'm going to give you guys a little insight as to one of the common complaints I hear about healthcare in doctors' offices. So I had a friend of mine said number one complaint he has, and the reason he doesn't go to the doctor is because he goes and he has to wait 2 hours in the waiting room to seek care. So a lot of you probably think the doctors do this on purpose. They want you to sit in the waiting room. They want you to be exposed to more illnesses. So not true. So I know your frustration is time. My time is incredibly valuable, and I don't want to sit in a doctor's office 2 hours. But let me give you a little insight. I managed many medical practices, and they're all very different. So I will say that. So who you see is very important. So the most important thing is you want doctors to respect your time, because they're getting paid to be seen by you, for them to see you, and you want them to be respectful of your time. So what causes this? Well, some of it's obvious. So you could have a doctor that actually is never on time. And you'll know this pretty quick if you're getting appointments and they're never on time. Well, I can tell you I actually worked for a doctor that was never on time. And some of the reason for that was of his own doing. Patients were scheduled at 8 a.m. He didn't show up to the office till 9. Guess what? We're already an hour behind. Same thing with lunch. Went to lunch, and incredibly, he always took at least an hour for lunch, even if he didn't leave for lunch till it was time to come back. Again, you're running behind. So I used to kind of joke with him about that, about being respectful, but I also wanted him to see, he didn't want me changing the schedule. We used to have blocks of time that, we fit patients into 15-minute slots, and he didn't want me changing any of that. And I said, well, if you're not going to show up in time, I'm not going to schedule patients at 9. I'm just going to tell you they're at 8, so maybe you'll get here at 9. He got better over the years, a little bit of coaching from me, explaining why it was important for patients not to sit in the waiting room forever, and how unhappy patients is not what you want to have. They're already sick, not feeling well. You certainly don't want someone coming in there and being even more upset because they had to wait 2 hours and they feel like crap. So some of it could be the doctor's fault. Some of it could be the staff's fault. If you have someone that doesn't know what they're doing, and there's not a good practice manager that oversees and helps streamline the process, sometimes someone calls and they just put them on the schedule, and without asking some of the appropriate questions. So one thing that doesn't always happen is the patient or the employee asking the patient what they need to come in for. If it's a simple refill, or maybe you have the flu, those are a lot of times, those should be relatively quick appointments. But what happens is they don't ask the right questions, and the patient has a lot of concerns, or let's put it back onto the patient. Sometimes it's the patient's fault. Why am I saying that? Okay, Jane Smith calls for an appointment and says, I'm not feeling well. I just want to come in and see the doc so he can check me, make sure I don't have strep throat. Well, great. They make an appointment for 15 minutes. That should be a 15-minute appointment. Then what happens? Jane's husband says, you know what? I'm not feeling well too. I'm going to go with you. Well, you know what? Little Johnny may get it too, so let's bring him. So now they show up, and they all go into the room together with the doctor, and still nobody knows that it's not just Jane that wants to be seen. It's Jane, her husband, and little Johnny. The doctor gets in the room, and all of a sudden, they're all there, and now the doctor needs to examine all of them because that's what they said. So, interestingly, people don't realize that these are the same people that complain about waiting too. I might add, they're the ones that come in and want to know why they're having to wait so long. Well, it's because of patients like you that are not respectful of the doctor's time, or don't give the receptionist or the front office person enough information so they can schedule the correct time for your appointment. So that's another thing that people realize you need to excuse me, to tell the front office what you need to come in for. This way they can block enough time. So something else that happens then is someone comes in and it ends up being more involved. Not the patient's fault, not the receptionist's fault, but maybe someone comes in, they're feeling a little off, and then the doctor gets in there, their blood pressure is sky high. Oh crap, we may have an emergency. This needs to be addressed. So is it acute enough to send them over to the ER? Is there something we can do in the office? There's all kinds of things, again, depending on the doctor. I'm talking primary care mostly, because that's where I hear most of the complaints, that things can happen like that the doctor has no control over and the patient has no control over. Sometimes you just don't know until you get into the room what's happening. Of course, there's also where you've got a chatty patient or a chatty doctor. Doctors, primary care, it's really unfortunate, but it's all a numbers game now. This may come as a shock to you. Primary care doctors don't make very much money, and everyone thinks doctors are rich. I've run primary care practices. Every year our patient load went up and our income went down. And why is that? Mainly insurance, because insurance was reimbursing less, and in order to pay the bills, pay your staff, who by the way want raises every year. So how are you going to give a raise if your income is decreasing? You can't. It's like spending more money than you're bringing into your house. It doesn't work. So you have to see more patients, and by seeing more patients, that puts the doctor under a timeline of how long they can spend with each patient. And some doctors are really good about being direct and to the point with the patient, but some patients need hand holding. Some patients want that attention, and primary care just can't give it. There's just, unless they go to a concierge practice, which you're seeing a lot happening, because doctors are sick and tired of not being able to spend enough time with patients and to give them the quality of care that they deserve. And what that means is a smaller practice with less employees, and because you're going to see less people, so you're going to have less income. So that's one way that can be mitigated. But some doctors just can't do it. They just can't do it. They need to see the volume of patients to make ends meet. So not only do we have patients that create problems of going over schedule, we got emergencies or acute situations that need to be addressed immediately that just have to happen. Or of course, it could be the doctor's fault. So those are things that I hear people complain about a lot, but there are some remedies. So one thing, make sure you communicate to the front office what you're coming in for. When you call to schedule an appointment, tell them exactly what's going on. Tell them, hey, I want a little more time. I have a lot of questions for the doctor. Tell them that. They should schedule accordingly. Also, what time of day is best to come in? Usually not at the end of the day. First thing in the morning is going to be your best bet, because that's when hopefully things start running on time for the first appointment on. Things get behind, so either the first thing in the morning or ask for a first right after lunch appointment, because if you do that, then the chances are you're going to minimize your wait time. You know, you can actually fire your doctor. Go find another doctor that is more respectful of your time, because without them being respectful, are they actually listening to you? You want to have, I talked about this the other day, you want to have a relationship with your doctor that you can sit and talk to, ask questions where they don't feel intimidated, and you want to have enough time so that all your questions can be answered, and you have the knowledge of why you're doing certain tests, what his plan of action is, all those kinds of things that are very important in your healthcare, and it can actually help lower your healthcare costs if you know what's going on. So try to take things in your control. Look for a doctor's office. Sometimes it's worth going to a concierge doctor, that doesn't accept insurance, because they do charge a little bit more. There's actually insurance plans out there that work with concierge doctors. So that means you can go to the doctor, get the receipt, turn around, send it in, and the insurance company will reimburse you. Awesome, if you have care like that. Or there's also what they call direct providers, which that means is direct care providers. So what those providers do is you can pay a monthly membership to be a member, and you have access to the doctor 24/7. And a lot of those memberships are not very expensive. They generally do not take insurance, but again, there are insurance plans out there that allow you to recoup some of that cost, and that's awesome, because then you're out of pocket less. So what is your time worth to you? Really, that's what it comes down to. You want to have a good relationship, you want a doctor that you love, but what is your time worth to you? So for me, I go to a concierge doctor. My time is way too valuable to sit in a waiting room, and I won't sit in a waiting room. I have left doctor's offices. I have very little tolerance for rude front office people, which, by the way, that's the #1 reason patients leave a practice, is because their employees are terrible. And I have very little patience for the wrong answer when it comes to medical offices. I've run too many medical offices. I don't want to be told we're doing it this way because it's the law, when it's not the law. You have to learn to stand up for yourself, and you have to educate yourself on what the law is, and that may be their practice at the office, that may be what they want to do in their office, but that doesn't mean it's a law or a rule that every doctor will follow. Most recent example was, I know someone that went to the doctor and they were told, well, you have to come in, it's a law, you come in before we can refill your prescription. No, it's not. It is not the law. It's standard of care maybe, and there's certain prescriptions they won't refill without being seen, and there's reasons for that when it comes to pain medications and Schedule III drugs. I get it, but to refill other medications is not necessarily the law that you have to go in and see them or have a physical. It's what they want to do, and it's what the rules of the practice, which is fine. But you need to know what those rules are, so you know if that's the kind of practice you want to go to. And that's what's really important, is you get to choose. Yes, there's lots of insurance coverages you have, that you have a list of doctors. Hopefully there's a broad enough list that you can pick and choose and find one that meets your needs. And if not, then maybe you need different insurance. So that's it for today. Let me know your thoughts on this. I'm happy to expound some more, give you some of my inside scoop of having run medical offices, done medical billing. I have a lot of knowledge in that area, and I can help you navigate that, so maybe you're not so frustrated. Till tomorrow, bye-bye.